If you ever feel like a fraud, whether that's at work or even in your relationships, you are not alone. The common phenomenon is called imposter syndrome.
We're here with leadership and life coach Vernee Smith to learn some tips on how to cope with those feelings. So let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, because I'm hearing that terminology a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that feeling that you start to question yourself, right? Like, am I good at this? Am I qualified? Am I? Just like you were talking about with the Jennifer Aniston thing, am I enough?
Am I enough?
Yes.
Right?
Imposter syndrome is always asking us that.
And so I think we have to get to kind of the root of what causes this. And I have to think that a lot of it is just based on our own insecurities about if we deserve to be in that room, in that job, in that position, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. There's a couple things that kind of contribute to imposter syndrome. One is definitely our own self, right? We're when we want to change something in our life, you know, your ego and your status quo starts to go, well, no. This isn't normal. You're not going to be good at this. And people have to be willing to be a novice at something before they do it. And so, but that's what gets in the way, and that imposter syndrome starts to get in the way of, like, I'm going to do this new thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. You're not.
You're not.
Yeah, you know.
You're not. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to be a beginner at something. That's how you build mastery. But when we, get into that spiral, it can be really hard to get out of. And the other thing that happens is, where did you get the story from, right? Because sometimes that imposter syndrome, that voice, isn't yours. It might be a parent, it might be a teacher, it might be a coworker or a frenemy, right? It's not always your voice that is getting in the way and getting in there and sort of wheedling around.
Yeah, and you're so right about that. I had a boss once who told me, it was a sales job, and he said, you know what, your first year, you're going to be horrible at this job. And he was right. I mean, but it's okay not to know how to do something, because you learn. But I'm the type of person who, like, I'm really tough on myself, so that I hear that voice in my head. So how do you identify that you're really struggling with this?
Well, when you're stuck, when you're frozen, right? When you can't get to where you want to get to, and you keep going, but why? Why can't I get there? Why can't I get there? And sometimes that voice is so quiet.
Yeah.
It's sitting in the background, and you don't even know that you're saying certain things to yourself. Like, I remember being in my 20s and trying to be out there and trying to meet people and date, and I kept saying in the back, I just want to be alone.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, because I just, like, people are in your face all the time. I just want to be left alone. Well, you are.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me, I probably had that thought for 2 or 3 years before I heard it. So imposter syndrome works the same way, right? Like, it's this little tiny whisper that starts to tell you that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And then if you don't even know that it's there, well,
yeah,
we can't get
well,
into
and
that.
I think too, and I don't want to speak in general terms for men and women, but I feel like for a lot of women, some of this too is we have to come across as likable and humble and all of these other things that we feel like society is throwing at us, and they are.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with that, as well as then feeling confident in where we should be and balancing that. And I feel like that all starts to weigh into this imposter syndrome bubble.
Well,
It's a deeper dive.
That's a huge thing, and it's called the Barbie movie. Especially as a woman, right?
Yeah.
That the expectation is this, but not this, but not.
Yeah.
And
it can get confusing
It
and
is.
overwhelming.
And eventually you just have, what do I want? What do I need? And what's going to make my life feel worth living versus what does Cosmos say? What does Instagram say, right? We have to start getting into that conversation with self and see where we land first before we take opinion from anybody else.
Anybody else.
All right, so what about some quick tips to help us deal with this?
Okay, so I've got 10.
Okay.
Great. Get out your notepad.
Because it needs to be actionable, right? So free associative writing is something that you can do where you just write and you don't think about it. You can literally, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. And you'll start to write things that whisper voice, that'll start to come up. You want to identify the voice. Is it yours or is it somebody else's, right?
Yeah.
So you want to really make sure that that is an accurate voice and a voice that you respect.
Yeah.
Right? Name the voice if that's your thing. Carol, thank you for sharing, but we are not having that thought today. Not today. You can find somebody else. You all are reporters. Finding the truth is so important.
Right.
So what's the evidence around this thought? Is there any truth in it, or is it just something that, like, you've always been told or you always thought that doesn't have any backing to it? ask for feedback, because this is something that people are really, really scared to do, but is so powerful. You might be messing up.
That's right.
Yeah.
You might, that voice might actually have a little bit of accuracy to it. So find somebody that you trust to give you that feedback. Then rewrite your story. You know, if you're gonna write a story about yourself, it might as well be a good one. So take out all of that negative and like, what's the best case scenario versus the worst case? If you have to, like you said, you can't get past it, seek professional help.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
think
therapists or counselors
Well, like you
are for.
said, sometimes that voice is coming from some deep emotional childhood stuff. So really great stuff, Vernee. Thank you
stuff.
so
Thank
much.
you.
So good to have you here.
Thank you.
And if you would like to connect with Vernee, we're going to have a link on our website at kdka.com/talkpittsburgh.